Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Fanalysis. Today we're covering Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I'm Retty4, this is Greyjeller91.
Hello.
This is Evan Never95.
Hello.
This is Jensarai1.
Jiggery pokery, hocus pocus, squiggly wiggly.
And this is Antoine Bandelay.
I love that. I solemnly swear that I'm up to no good.
Explain what we're doing today, Matt, because it's, such a complicated topic.
Yeah, this is chapter 1, aka the worst birthday. And because it's basically just Harry having breakfast with the Dursleys for a few pages, there's not a lot to talk about. So on top of that,
admittedly Herculean task.
Right. So on top of that, we're going to begin this with an opening statements, I guess, of our book review and talk about our impressions.
How we're coming into it, yeah.
Yeah, from our past readings and what we expect to change going forward, if anything, and going forward, what we expect. So that's how we're opening this, right? Before we get
just general impressions of the book as a whole. Without going into specifics, just what we felt about this one, because it's not contentious in the series, but it's I would say it's most commonly the least liked or at least regarded overall. Not by measure of it being the worst technically necessarily, but just because it's the one that is less relevant than all the others, if you know what I mean. It's not the introduction, and it doesn't have any big, massive moments in it for the story overall.
Well,
my metric for this is just Google ranked Harry Potter books, and this is in the bottom and 90% of the time. Mm-hmm. So not to say that it's a bad book, but just generally speaking, it's not most people's favorite Harry Potter book.
Well, in the same way that a redheaded stepchild isn't necessarily a bad child, it's just the redheaded stepchild.
That's one way to put it.
Very family friendly there, Antoine. Very wholesome.
But
hey, I actually love the Weasleys, so it's all right.
But
me and the Weasleys go back.
Aside from the unknown introduction of the Horcruxes and the stuff with Voldemort at the end, of course, it doesn't really have any relevance to anything. This book, it's kind of one of those. It's the next episode in the series kind of thing with how it's presented.
The first book is the groundwork for Harry.
Mm-hmm. I feel like they all are kind of in that way. They're all kind of... Well, not all. I mean, maybe after Goblet of Fire, it's not that way anymore.
But what I mean is, if you could consider any of the books to be filler, it's the Chamber of Secrets, is what I'm saying. It's the one where, okay, and next year they do this. And then it was only only at book 3 where they really kind of jumpstart and fill out the series on a kind of series-level arc progression, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it did get more mature, but at the same time, it didn't go all the way. So,
I want to use the word it feels the most self-contained, even though technically it's not. It's as connected to anything else. But you don't have things like the pensive, where you see the past. You don't have establishment of what came before Harry, because we're now in the thick of Harry's story. You don't have the Marauders. You don't have all these things that carry out on throughout the timeline. So it is just sort of what's going on in this year of Hogwarts, which isn't to say it's a problem or anything, but I think that is what makes it feel a little smaller in scale for me, and for most people when it comes to it in the gradient of all Harry Potter books.
It's more for book fans that it is someone who can just jump right in and enjoy it on its own. It's definitely for someone who's already into the series, who's yeah, I want to know more. I want to be back at Hogwarts, just in the same way Harry is musing in the first chapter. It's that. I think someone who is already invested in the series will be fine with it. We're all fine with it. Actually, it's just that
I like
a
all
preference
the Harry
to picking
Potter
up.
books. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So
it just is what it is, really.
The first one gave us Hogwarts, and it gave us Harry, and it gave us the characters. This one gives us blood status. That's a thing that's explored here that isn't a thing in the first one. So yeah, that's its big contribution to the world.
For me, my history with this book is actually interesting because it was actually the fourth Harry Potter book that I read. I read Philosopher's Stone, but then circumstances, I ended up just getting hold of a copy of Prisoner of Azkaban and deciding, fuck it, I'll read it, and ended up loving it. And then I read Goblet of Fire, and then I had to come back and read this one because I had skipped it. And the sad thing
that's a good way of putting it, actually. It's the least valuable one to the series in terms of watching it. If you have to not read, if you have to not read one book, Chamber of the Secrets would definitely be the one for everyone, I think. to recommend.
Connor, was it you who said that you were freaking out, or you were like, "What's going on?" when it said Ron had broke his wand last year? Was that you who mentioned that, or was that someone entirely different? I'm thinking about. Okay, I'm thinking about somebody else,
because
I think I had
a page out of his book, right?
That was me, because I was missing like the first chapter out of my book.
Oh, okay.
And I remember actually very funny. The first chapter of Chamber of Secrets is the one I probably like have read the least, not because I haven't read the book, but because I was missing it out of my paperback at the time.
Well, you missed
okay, no, that was someone else. I think it was one of my other friends who said that she had read, like she also had skipped Chamber of Secrets, but then she was reading it and was like, "What? When did Ron break his wand?" And she realized, "Oh, I haven't read the second book." You know?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's like I did get that a lot of these things I was reading up and didn't get were references to Chamber of Secrets. So I was like, okay, that happened then, moving on. But yeah, I didn't read this until after I read Goblet of Fire. So, and in fact, I had actually already seen the movie by the time I read this book.
Which is essentially the book anyway, to be honest.
Yeah,
book 1 and 2
is
got well
one of the
represented in the
closer
films.
adaptations.
Yeah.
Now, is that the longest movie? Like, it's like a solid 2.5 hours long, isn't it?
Yeah, I
I
genuinely forget how long the early films were. It's crazy that they're so long.
Yeah.
So it's basically this entire book almost, like with like very few
exceptions.
exceptions.
Oh yes, the extended versions
movie.
are almost 3 hours. It's 6 minutes of being 3 hours.
Yeah.
Wow. Which is crazy.
So I mean, unless you count 7 Part 1 and 2 as one film, yeah, they're definitely the longest.
As they should be, in my opinion. In terms of, as they should be, in my opinion. You should always have a really long film for a book adaptation. Even if you're cutting it down on things, which you need to, as we've spoken about before, for a good adaptation.
Or do it as a series.
Or a series, of course.
Yeah.
Or you could take a short book and add things to it.
Yeah, that too.
No.
But yeah, as long as it's done well.
Reference.
That's a Hobbit reference, I think.
I know.
Yes, that's exactly.
But
I got you, Evan. I got you.
But
Thank
yeah,
you.
just
we all did. Antoine, we all got him. Right?
That was his English charm again.
I don't want the viewers thinking we're stupid. We all got that. Anyway, let's go.
But yeah, just the idea, they need to have them at a certain length to capture every part of the book. And for 1 and 2, which aren't overly long books in general, you can do that. You can afford to spend time on every single scene, most of them anyway, without losing kind of pacing in the film or whatever. But you can't do the later books, obviously, so it makes sense that they're cut off a bit. But they still should have been longer than they were, in my opinion. But regardless, that's the films. So yeah, my take on this book rather, is that I enjoy it. It's not, again, it's probably my least favourite, I think, or it's effectively tied with book 1. Book 1 only really gets the edge because it was the introduction, and that first step into the larger world that we've mentioned before. But yeah, that's all I really have to say on it. As overall, it's a fine book. It's not technically flawed. I'm not saying it's in my opinion, it's actually better than book 7 in terms of technical sophistication. But it's just not as important. Like we said, you could skip this one more than any other, and it would be the least impactful for you as a result.
So I argue with Callan all the time on random stuff. I completely agree with him on this. And like when I don't often reread like Harry Potter books in like a cycle from beginning to end. Like if I want to just immerse myself back in the world, I will grab a random middle book, and I just frequent those more often. I like this book, but it's nowhere near my favorite Harry Potter book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I have an interesting background with the movies. Well, with the Chamber of Secrets movie specifically, I ended up seeing it 6 times in theaters because, well, when it came out, it was in theaters like forever, for almost a year, and I just kept up falling in with random groups of friends or going on a school trip or something where it's like, hey, let's go see Chamber of Secrets, and I'm like, okay, fine, whatever, and I ended up seeing it in theaters 6 times over the course of 2002 and 2003.
That is too many times to go to the cinema for one film. No wonder you ended up working in a cinema. It was destiny at that point.
It was destiny.
But yeah,
that isn't the one he's seen the most times.
No, you said
more
before.
On that
no, for some reason he saw Half-Blood Prince more than that.
More on that later.
Yeah, more on that later, because I actually like Half-Blood Prince quite a bit.
But yeah, let's jump into the actual chapter itself.
Oh,
I mean, it's
boy.
not a particularly meaty one, but there's some points worthy of discussion.
We start with recaps.
Yes,
Lots
precisely.
of recaps.
I like that. I mean, it's not particularly elegant. Let's not lie about this. But I like that she does manage to summate the experience of Hogwarts through the lens of Harry's perspective, and how Harry's longing is our longing at this point. It's not when she follows up with the actual salvo of every single element of Hogwarts he's missing, less so. But the initial, description of how he's just so he misses it. He longs for his home. It's not really been established at this point, but it is his home for him now. And that's something that recurs for the rest of the series. And we definitely feel that from him. I like that. Mm-hmm. It is one of the early kind of capturing emotional moments from the book.
Yep. Because, the thing is that it's the one place where he actually feels like he belongs, whereas at the Dursleys, he's always been an outcast since day one. It's, the Dursleys is the sort of place where you'll regard it as home if you have no other options, but the second you find something better, it's like, okay, fuck you, this isn't my home anymore. You're just people that I have to stay with a couple months out of the year.
Difference between, home is where I live and home is where the heart is. It's that kind of mentality. It's very clearly established throughout all of this series. The only reason he ever comes back is obviously the magical reason that Dumbledore explains later. And I like that we get that, because otherwise there is no reason for him to come back here.
We don't get that for a while, though, right? That's
not not until way later. Yeah, it's Order of the Phoenix. Yeah. But it's I like the fact that she had an idea in the back of her head, because there is no reason otherwise that he wouldn't come back here.
Of course, the funniest thing is the fact that Harry doesn't really question it all that much until the later storylines, because the thing is that having to go back to the Dursleys and be with the Dursleys and deal with the Dursleys is just something that he's long since accepted as a reality that he has to deal with. So it just becomes so much part of his daily grind that he doesn't think about it until several years later, and he's like, hey, why did you send me to live with those assholes instead of a wizard family that wouldn't abuse me?
It's when he's got more of a familiar connection to Dumbledore that these questions start to arise, and obviously the more familiar he gets with him, the more not casual, but he gets, as we know from later books, he certainly gets less formal with Dumbledore.
Well, but in the same way that you could say about like this book, like from the perspective of the reader who's already experienced the rest of the series, Harry's world is smaller than it is by that point. He doesn't have any other options. I mean, this is his only family, It's like there are no alternatives. Later on, he's thinking, could go with my godfather, could go with someone else. But
go with the Weasleys, as is introduced here early in this book. That's the option that gets opened up here. One of my favourite parts of it, actually. But we'll get to that when we get to that chapter. But yeah,
now we're preparing for a dinner party.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I would be on board with this. I would be happy to go up into my room and make no noise and pretend I'm not there. Because who wants the stress of going to a dinner party with some random strangers that are related to your parents?
I'm with you there on that one. Yeah.
Oh,
give me that option any day.
Just backpedaling for a second, back to the recaps. One of the things that I liked, specifically the little description, the Dursleys were what wizards called muggles, not a drop of magical blood in their veins in a speech bubble. I feel like an idiot for forgetting what that's called, but whatever.
Quotation marks.
No, he means parenthetical, I think is what he's talking about.
Oh,
yeah, parentheticals. Thank you. Brackets. Not a drop of magical blood in their veins. The thing I like is that when you read it the first time you're reading this chapter, it's just an offhanded reference to, it's like they're not magical, whatever. You don't think that the phrase magical blood means anything until later in the book when mudblood comes up, and then you start realizing, oh wait, wizard power totally is tied to their genetics. They actually do have a reason to not want to interbreed with muggles.
And how that kind of not justifies, obviously, but it explains why they have such a connection to status as well for the older,
because
Polish families.
And it also kind of explains something about how Voldemort himself was able to gather so many followers so quickly, and why so many of those followers were maniacs, powerful maniacs. It's because these wizarding families have been inbreeding for centuries to try and preserve their blood purity and their magical power. The problem is all of the negative aspects of inbreeding, the deformation, the birth defects, and the greater inclination towards psychological disorders, combined with the fact that their efforts to maintain blood purity are actually successful, and the pure-blooded families are typically more powerful wizards. Incredible magic power attached to a mind that's got a few screws loose.
Bellatrix Lestrange, anyone?
Yeah. Encapsulates that in one nutshell.
It's like she's the best example of it, but a lot of many of Voldemort's supporters and Voldemort himself because of his descent from the Gaunt family, who took it to a whole new extreme. It's like the Gaunts were basically the Targaryens of the Harry Potter universe. It's like, okay, let's maintain blood purity by screwing out my sibling.
And I'm going back to the actual line itself as well. It's a good example of how she kind of captures the voice of the thoughts as well, because them being in the brackets, it's kind of an aside thought. But as with most of her dialogue, the thought chains always come across as being something that you would read out to someone. I like how it kind of flows off the page again in that regard. And there's a lot of that in this early chapter, even if the plot and the actual excitement hasn't really kicked in at all. You still get the feel that, okay, JK's not lost her touch. This is still as flowing and as graceful on the kind of prose level as it ever has been.
The action hasn't kicked in for you yet? I was riveted.
One critique I will have of the writing, though, is I do feel like she does lean too much on adverbs and setisms, especially when I think her dialogue is very good. Like, you can cover up someone's name in a passage of dialogue and know who's speaking. I think she relies a little bit too much on saying, like, said blah blah, when you're like, oh, I think I know who's saying that. You can make it flow a bit better, if you just have your dialogue flowing,
in her defense, she does kind of phase those out further into the book. I get the impression that was something to kind of let the kids get into the flow of things, and then gradually I definitely start noticing that less and less as you move in, and it seems like it's the sort of thing that an editor would say, okay, you need to have more of this to start with to kind of establish the frame. And then when when people have been let into the book and gotten used to the characters and gotten used to the style, she then kind of lets go a bit on that one, because it definitely eases up throughout each book and then obviously go to the series.
The adverbs as well, or
the setisms more than anything else. The adverbs is part of a descriptive style, I think, and I think for the most part it works. It's a little bit basic in the early parts of the early books, but I think the refinement kind of kicks in very quickly. For me.
Ellipses and dashes everywhere. Like, I think she. There's a lot of them.
She doesn't care about the standard author conventions when it comes to that. For example, brackets are a perfect example. Not many people use brackets in literature, but she does, and I think it works. It's one of those things where, yes, technically it's not the best form for an author, but no one cares because what you're reading is gold. So she kind of gets away with it.
I like that about her style. Like, when you hear a narrator reading it, it feels more natural hearing it that way than perfect, like, prose, actually, for me sometimes.
It does have that natural element because it's, again, more about the conversation, more about the physical, reading out of what's being said, either in your head or, as you said, for the audiobook. It's just you can technically do that with stuff like commas and semi-commas and stuff. Semicolons rather. It's just it's just something to do with her style. She's not she doesn't come from a writer's background. It's all basically the personal preference and her own unique style. So it kind of it's a step away from the norm, but I think it works. I do see where you're coming from though, Antoine. It's definitely more present in the earlier books. It stands out for sure.
Not even early. I just meant like this chapter. Like, there was just so much of that, and I was like, "This is a lot."
Well, it helps that she's literally listing every element of Hogwarts, so it's like it's very basic in terms of, okay, I have to say this.
Yeah, that's fine.
I have to say this, and I have to say this, and I have to say this.
Was fine to me. It was particularly the conversation they were having about like Harry having to be quiet and pretend it doesn't exist or whatever. Like,
I'll be in my room, not saying anything, pretending I'm not there,
making no noise and pretending I'm not
making
there.
No noise.
It's one of those classic lines, isn't it, from the earlier books?
Which
is funny because again, it's not really that relevant.
They turned it into, I'll be in my room making no noise and pretending that I don't exist.
Yeah. It's worth noticing, actually, the early chapters from the entirety of the book, really, but the early chapters especially, the film captured perfectly for me. Like, they did a really good job of the early Privet Drive stuff in the films.
Yeah.
For the first three, because it was...
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah. For the first three. That's only stands true for the first three, and especially the first two.
Yeah.
The films go way off the rails after that. To their detriment.
Which is actually kind of disappointing, because the Dursleys actually get a surprising amount of characterization in the later books that's, absent from the movies.
Well, it's one of the biggest tonal kind of jumps in the book, the difference between them at the start and them at the end. At least with Petunia, for sure.
Because that's really, you even have like him. Wait, no, do you even? No, you have like a little. They just look at each other from across the way in the movie, but in the book it's a big thing with him and Dudley. But even the fourth one,
isn't there a deleted scene where they like shake hands?
There is, yes.
Yeah, I believe so. Or
outside
something
the
like
front
that,
door.
There's a deleted scene where Petunia says something that she doesn't say in the books even as well.
Right, that's actually true. And then what's crazy about the fourth movie cutting the Dursleys is that was like one of the more pivotal scenes, because when Mr. Weasley comes and goes like, "Do you not know who he is?" Like, that was a huge moment. I was like, how can you just get over that?
It's even better than that, because it's like, it's more, he's affronted that it's your nephew. You don't give a shit. Like, it's like he's the ultimate.
And not even
family
that he's
man.
a famous.
You can't relate
like,
to that.
Bro, like, especially because he's a Weasley and family is first for him.
Yeah.
And like, how dare you do that? So
so out of character for him as well,
I
to actually cause
that
that kind of confrontation, and it's because it's something that matters to him. It's a really powerful moment for me in the books.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, of course, hilarious because of what happens. But because they skipped that part in the movies, like my parents, they didn't read the books. And when I was saying that, they were like, when I was saying, hey, they cut out this scene, they go, he went back. Because like their last memory of him was running away after the Marge thing. He's like, they were like, why would he go back? Because they don't have like the context of like magical charm and all that. It's funny thinking how much people, all those little things that skate by you if you didn't read the books and you watch the movies, that you just don't know what you're missing.
Yeah.
But the next kind of thing that happens in the chapter is literally the end of it. You have the in-between moment with the garden where he gets his first encounter with Dobby, unbeknownst to him.
I mean, I get to see my also favorite Harry sass. Like he's
of course, with
fun
Dudley
of Dudley
himself. Yeah,
that's
immediately following the Hedge bit though.
Which I thought was funny. Even before that, when he even just laid the word down, magic. Like I love that she's established, and also that helps establish the tone of the book. If this is the first one you've read, like if she sets up a scene where he just drops the word magic and they all freak out, like you get it. You get what you're getting into. If you didn't read A Philosopher's Stone and you went straight into this one, like I think she set that up very well in the context of the scene progression.
Agreed.
It works well because of how cartoonish the Dursleys are for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Because like all he has to do is say that, "How dare you threaten Dudley?" It's like, really? Like, it's like that didn't happen. And,
I put in the notes. I put in the notes that Dursley buffoonery, and it really is that for the early books. They are literally cartoon characters.
The funny thing is, though, is that cartoonish aspect to them actually makes a lot of sense when you stop and consider the Dursleys are so ashamed of being related to actual wizards that they're overcompensating on being normal to the point where their total adherence to, social convention is itself abnormal.
That's completely true, but I just can't believe how affected they are in their private life, like in their own home. It's like, that's nuts. But it's hilarious to me. I love watching. Vernon Dursley is like my favorite love to hate him character, or one of them in these books. He's just hilariously affected by everything. I like it.
And when Richard Griffiths was actually allowed to play him in the first 3 movies, he did a great job in the role. R.I.P. Richard Griffiths.
Completely agree. He did a great job with that. The standout moment in the books for me has always been that car scene when he's just like, he nearly crashes the car because Harry alludes to a dream he had. It's like, it encapsulates the insanity of that man. But we get that's obviously, I agree with you, Antoine. The sass from him, from Harry towards Dudley has always been a great moment for me in this early chapter. But also we get one of my favourite lines, one of my favourite kind of whimsical rolling lines, which is, and the Hedge stared back at him.
Harry suddenly sat bolt upright on the garden bench. He had been staring absent-mindedly into the hedge, and the hedge was staring back.
Yeah.
2 enormous green eyes had appeared among the leaves.
Yeah, I love that little moment for how complete it is despite being so small. The reaction Harry gets it quickly leads into the Dudley moment, but
and the funny
she gets a
thing
lot across in a
is,
very short space of time there.
The funny thing for me is that having seen the movie when I read this book and I read this bit, I was like, I immediately knew what the green eyes looked like because I knew what Dobby looked like, and it's just so easy to picture the Dobby eyes in the movie just in that hedge.
Oh yeah.
It's like the whole thing just clicks.
We'll get more into it next chapter, but Dobby is something.
Films I thought was excellent.
Oh yeah, more on it in the next chapter, but it's fantastic.
Yeah.
The interpretation of him was brilliant, and of course it was post Gollum, so they had a lot with the technology practice there.
What?
Dobby was post Gollum, so they had a lot to work with in that kind of that technology.
Right.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I guess he was.
Was he post Gollum, really?
Yeah, I guess it was the same time.
Close, but one of the closest
close,
examples,
yeah.
but still very just post. Yeah.
But I also like that because like later on in the books, like in the last one, really, when Harry and Dudley kind of have like a different sort of connection. I like that she like lays the seeds for that early on, where even though Dudley's being like a mean kid and like a bully, he does take enough notice of Harry to know it's his birthday. Even though he comes out here to like to needle at him, like there's no one celebrating his birthday. He's not invisible to Dudley the way he is treated by like the parents, or aunt and uncle. You know, so I like that.
That kind of obviously, like you said, it's for the sake of bullying him and getting that enjoyment from it. But that attentiveness to Harry's kind of existence is something that lets me buy into his growth. To be fair, his arc and his growth throughout the series. Because obviously we get the end when post book 5 when he's had the encounter with the Dementor and he kind of gets that realization of I have some thinking to do, and it's born of this kind of awareness. I think this is the first kind of seed in which you see that. So it's worth noting on that level.
Yeah.
That's about all I got.
That is basically the end of the chapter. You know.
Okay, he goes to his room. The dinner party.
Well, I mean, the Connor thing he said at the beginning with I think it's really funny that he's using stupid magic words, kind of similar to what Fred and George fed to Ron with the Sunshine Jay-Z's Buttermellow spell. Like spells don't really work like that, and he's over here saying that to Dudley right now. You know, like hocus
how
pocus.
Do we know the spell doesn't work? Yeah. For all we know, that spell totally does work, and it does turn rats yellow. It just didn't work in that particular instance because he wasn't trying to transfigure a rat. He was trying to transfigure an animagus.
Oh, possible. Man, but it's weird because there's no other spells that take that long to... Unless it's like a ritual spell or something.
Yeah, it's definitely...
I mean, it's always
transfiguration is usually just like tap, done.
It's really weird to me whenever they speak like proper English trying to do magic. Because like there's even a scene... like when Snape is trying to find something where he's like, reveal your secret.
Oh,
so that doesn't sound like a spell.
But I mean, all the spells are the Latin, equivalents for the words. So it's not, it's,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I completely get what you mean, but it's interesting to think about how many other spells there are out there in various different languages from various different cultural backgrounds.
Oh, I see what you're doing. You're plugging your favorite fanfic right now. Like, that's what you do.
But that's what,
like he legitimately is. This is Dumbledore's army and the something.
And the Year of Darkness.
Yeah.
Amazing fanfic everyone should read. But I wasn't intentionally plugging that, but that does come up there, yeah.
I've read one chapter, and that's the crux of the chapter. But yeah, basically. Nice try, Kellen. That didn't work.
I mean, you can't really find it very easily anymore. Anyway,
yeah, you can. It's all over the internet. Just for some reason they took it down on fanfiction.net. Don't know why. But
which
yeah,
is
you'll
like
find
the main source. So yeah, a lot of
it's out there. But regardless, I wasn't actively pushing for that. I was just saying it's interesting to think about, and that is one of the things that comes up in it.
You were literally pushing for it.
But yeah, Harry gets punished for making fun, or for I don't know, his retaliation towards Dudley, and Petunia punishes him by making work in the garden.
They left every chore in the world, like for this day. He washed the windows and the car, and he pruned he mowed the lawn, and he painted a bench.
All in an afternoon.
all in a horrible British summer as well. It was sweltering. It's horrific heat. I would not want to be doing that.
Harry's dedicated. Yeah.
But yeah, he gets
and then he gets dinner, which is just a slab of cheese and 2 pieces of bread.
Which, while not particularly wholesome on scale, at least it was taste nice. I'm a big fan of bread and cheese. I often have that with supper. But yeah, he's sent to bed with barely anything to eat, of course, and that's the end of the chapter. Really, we get one of the perfect ends to a chapter. This is an example of those. We've said before many times that she hooked you in for the next chapter, but this is the perfect.
Go lay down on his bed. There was already someone on it.
The trouble was there was already someone sitting on it, and then you can't not turn the page then. And it's the same with the next chapter as well. But she's always she puts a lot of attention on that in the early chapters of the series. Actually, she always
those are the most important ones to get people through, because once you're generally halfway through a book, you're like, okay, I'm going to finish this thing.
Yeah,
but
precisely.
It's the starting ones that are like you got to keep these people in.
Got to get them committed, and she does a really good job of that always. But yeah, that's the end of the chapter. So, any closing thoughts, guys, or are we going to move straight on to the next one?
Straight on.
Straight on, yeah.
All right, so see you guys next week for Chapter 2, Dobby's Warning. Goodbye.
Remember, boy, one sound.
I'm ready for it, and I still don't have an outro.
Greyjet 91, bye-bye.
Evan Nova 95, we hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later.
Get in here and walk on the newspaper.
Antoine Bandelet, mischief managed.
We got it right. Everyone did it in sequence for once. Excellent. All right. Goodbye.